So the human race is about to enter a totally data-mined existence, and it's going to be really fun to watch. It's going to be one of those things where our grandkids are going to tell our kids, I can't believe you grew up in a world like that, just the way our kids complain that we went to record stores. You know, when Tom Cruise walks through the mall in Minority Report and the ad beams right to his eyes and says, hey, Mr. Cruise, you should go on that Caribbean vacation you've been thinking about. I know some entrepreneurs who are working on that technology right now. And you know, I'm still waiting for the day when my refrigerator is going to know when I'm running out of milk and just order it for me automatically on Fresh Direct. I think that day is coming in a few years. It's not far off. The world in 30 years is going to be unrecognizably data mined. So what does that mean for education? Well, education happens to be, today, the world's most data mineable industry by far, and it's not even close. Right? So maybe one day healthcare will be up there when they have little nanobots that are in your bloodstream that are doing real-time analysis. But until then, it's not close. Education beats everything else hands down. So let's look at other big data industries. The really big data industries in the world right now are not surprisingly on the internet because that's where it's easiest to grab the data, and that's also where there's a congregation of talent that understands data. So well, let's just look at it by the numbers, because the name of the game is data per user. Okay, so one of the things that fakes us out about data in education is education, because it's so big, right, it's like the fourth biggest industry in the world, it produces incredible quantities of data. But data that just produces one or two data points per user per day is not really all that valuable to an individual user. It might be valuable to like a school district administrator, but maybe not even then. So let's just compare. Netflix and Amazon get in the ones of data points per user per day. Google and Facebook get in the tens of data points per user per day. So you do 10 minutes of messing around in Google, you produce about a dozen data points for Google. Okay, great. So, so Knewton today gets 5 to 10 million actionable data per student per day. And we do that because we get people, if you can believe it, to tag every single sentence of their content. So publishers, we have a large publishing partnership with Pearson, and they've tagged all of their content. And we're an open standard, so anyone can tag to us. If you tag all of your content and you do it down to the atomic concept level, down to the sentence, down to the clause, you unlock an incredible amount of trapped, hidden data. Why do you do that? Well, if you use programmatic taxonomy models and item response theory and that thing at the bottom, we haven't given that a name yet, what you figure out is everything in education is correlated to everything else, down to the concept. And this is where education is different from search or social networking. If somebody tagged every single line, every single sentence of all the world's web pages for Google, or every single line of dialogue for Netflix, okay, which no one's done, but even if they had, there are not really a whole lot of interesting correlations there. Everything in education is correlated to everything else. Every single concept is correlated in a predictable way to everything else using psychometrics, right? So if you do 10 minutes of work in Google, you produce a dozen data points for Google. Because everything that we do is tagged at such a granular level, if you do 10 minutes of work for Knewton, you cascade out lots and lots of other data, and here's why. Like when you took the SAT, there might be 40 different concepts about equilateral triangles that are tested on all the SATs ever given in any one year. But you didn't get all 40 questions, you got 2 questions on equilateral triangles. Because they figure if you're in the top 14th percentile at those 2 questions, you know, 13th percentile on this one and 15th percentile on that one, okay, if you're in the top 14th percentile on those 2 questions in equilateral triangles, the odds are a 98th percentile chance that you're in the top 14th percentile at every concept in equilateral triangles. And there's a 96% chance that you're in the top 15th percentile at all triangle concepts, 3, 4, 5, 30, 60, 90, isosceles, et cetera, et cetera. You do a little bit of work for Knewton, and we use just the established science of psychometrics to cascade out hundreds of other data, right? So we can produce incredible quantities of data per user per day. It's really, really hard to get that, okay? But if you can get all that tagging done, and that's what one of our taxonomy, that's a small part of our overall taxonomy. That's just part of one course, right? We have dozens of taxonomies. Then you can do this. What you can do with the data, if you actually do all that work, is you can figure out exactly what students know and how well they know it. You can figure it out down to the percentile versus the rest of the population. So Knewton students today, we have about 125,000, 180,000 right now. By December, it'll be 650,000. Early next year, it'll be in the millions, and next year, it'll be close to 10 million. And that's just through our Pearson partnership. So for every one of those students, we can figure out within a few hours what they're strong at and what they're weak at the beginning of the course. Right? So we can produce a unique syllabus for each student each day, literally unique. There's not enough time in the universe for any 2 students to have the same syllabus on any one day. That's how many permutations there are. So it's optimized for each kid down to the atomic concept. And then we can figure out things like, well, here's your homework tomorrow night. You're going to struggle with that homework, or you're going to fail it, because there's concepts in that homework that we know you haven't mastered the previous concepts for that build up to that. Or there's concepts in that homework that correlate very highly to concepts you always have trouble with. So we know you're going to fail. We know it in advance, and we can prevent it in advance. We go grab some content from somewhere else in the portfolio. I'm going to seamlessly blend that into your homework tonight. So every kid gets a perfectly optimized textbook, except it also has video and other rich media, dynamically generated in real time. And it also uses the combined data power of the entire network. So here's what I mean by that. Like I said, next year we'll have close to 10 million students. A few years from now, we'll have 100 million. 100 million first shows up to learn something like rules of exponents or subject-verb agreement, whatever. We take the combined data power of all 100 million to figure out exactly how we should teach every concept to each kid. So the 100 million first shows up to learn rules of exponents. Great, let's go find a group of people who are psychometrically equivalent to that kid. They learn the same ways, they have the same learning styles, they know the same stuff, because Knewton can figure out things like you learn math best in the morning between 8:40 and 9:13 a.m. You learn science best in 42-minute bite sizes. The 44-minute mark, your click rate always begins to decline. You start missing questions you normally get right. You learn social studies best with video clips, or 22% video to 78% text, or whatever your optimal cocktail of bundle. We can tell when we should return content to you for optimal retention. We literally know everything about what you know and how you learn best. Everything. Because we have 5 orders of magnitude more data about you than Google has. We literally have more data about our students than any company has about anybody else, about anything, and it's not even close. That's why we can do all that stuff. Right? So then what we can do is we can take that profile of 100 million kids, next year it'll be 10 million. We can go figure out, okay, who's exactly like that kid? Whose learning styles up and down the line are just the same? Who knew the same stuff at the same level of mastery when they had to learn rules of exponents? Great. Statistically speaking, it has to be the case that some 5% or 10% through sheer bad luck did the absolute wrong thing for themselves without knowing it. They did questions that were too hard, they got discouraged, they bounced. They accessed text, they should have gotten video, whatever. It also has to be a fact of statistics that through pure blind luck, some top 1% did the absolute perfect thing for themselves without realizing it. And we go take the whole combined data power of that network of millions, soon to be tens of millions, eventually to be hundreds of millions of people, and for every single concept that your child learns, 2,000 concepts in a typical semester-long math course, for every single atomic concept, we take the combined data power of that vast network, and we use it to find the perfect plan forward for that kid for that concept. So that's what we do right now. Let me give you a couple of examples. This is one student. There's a few hundred learning clusters there. There's a few tens of thousands of atomic learning objects there. That's one student's path. This is a real student in a US college right now. And you'll see that each student has a totally different path. Some students have short paths, some have long paths. In this particular course, there were students who finished it in 14 days. There were students who finished it in 2 semesters. This is a course at ASU. They had to change their semester structure into a modular semester structure because we were suddenly telling them things like, if you give this woman here the final right now, she'll get an A. It's only 14 days into the course. I promise you she'll get an A. You can keep her in that seat if you want. And that's what we've always done. Now we don't have to. So let's show you this. This is an actual class. This is 150 students, one class. And look, they kind of all look like fleas, but that's all an individual learning path. Notice that some of them are going really fast, some of them are going really slow. And then they'll all kind of speed up when a test comes, right? It's kind of like organic. And so those different color-coded things are like concept clusters. Like some test obviously just happened, right? That's why they all just started working, right? And this, you can look at some of those students and think, boy, that poor schmuck is really in a lot of trouble, right? Because they're going so slowly. So where we think we're going with this, obviously it's in market right now. We're going to be in K-12 starting next year. And it's an open platform. Anyone can plug in and use it via APIs. And where we think we're going with the data side of it, which is the really fun stuff for today, is we think within a few years we'll be able to start predicting grade performance. So, teacher grades consistently year in and year out. If that teacher grades consistently, we can match up the student profiles, down to the atomic concept level versus grade performance. We can tell you, you're on track to get a B- in this course right now. Either that or if your teacher grades totally inconsistently, we can't tell you that, but that's another problem. If your teacher grades consistently, we can tell you what your grade's going to be, based on what you know and how fast you're learning it. But if you do another 30 minutes a day for 3 days a week, you can get it up to an A-. We can tell you things like that. We're really excited to correlate with other people's data sets via our open API, like things like, something we talk about as kind of as a joke, but it really should work, is like a food diary. You tell us what you had for breakfast every morning at the beginning of the semester. By the end of the semester, we should be able to tell you what you had for breakfast, because you always do better on the days you have scrambled eggs or whatever, right? And more importantly, we should be able to tell you what you should have for breakfast. So the power of data, when you unlock millions of data points per user per day, you can accomplish things that people aren't even conceiving of right now. But that world is coming. We're trying to bring it to you, and we're going to be an open system that will allow anyone to just plug that data, take it out, and then plug it back in. Thanks very much.